Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to the final part of the Vegan Activist Summit. This has been put in place now at all the VegFests. We are focusing on creative vegan education as a matter of sort of course now. It's standard part of vegan VegFest policy. We're trying to keep it creative, and the idea of the discussion today is a brief discussion to really just look at some of the effective forms of vegan activism. We've got a lovely panel here, which Karin will be introducing in just a second. There will be an opportunity to sort of join in, ask questions. It is a discussion, so it won't just be me going on all day. We will be discussing, and it will be filmed. There's also a Facebook page on the VegFest Facebook page, so if you do want to perhaps comment later or pick up on anything that's said, you'd be very welcome, and I'm sure all of our team here will be happy to, engage on Facebook as long as it's positive, respectful discourse. Yes, obviously. Big round of applause please for Karin Ridgers. She's our host, and she's going to briefly introduce our panel.
Okay, hello, thank you for coming. I bet we're all frazzled, aren't we? I've got no voice, so I don't know. I won't be speaking at all tomorrow, so I think everybody will probably be happy about that. I'm so happy to be here at the VegFest. It's just incredible and inspirational. And, I've got to say, if it wasn't for this guy here, Mr. B, Tim Barford, there would not be a VegFest. And he works flat out with his super team, Dr. Alan Lee. And they make it all happen because we are passionate about spreading the vegan word. I look after the publicity. That's wonderful, getting the vegan word in the media, a positive vegan message. We actually just coached a top magazine editor to be vegan, and she loved it so much, she is not going back. She will not eat meat ever again. She just did it for the article. But the results she saw and felt were so good that there's no way that she would go back. So it's activism. We're here today and yesterday at the VegFest, and we had the effective factor. And I think it's the most exciting thing we've ever done in about 1 million years of VegFest. It feels like 1 million years. How many years is it?
13 years, 14 years now.
14 years. I think it's the most exciting thing, the effective factor. And I felt very blessed to run the effective factor. Was anyone there? Did anyone come along yesterday? Wasn't it absolutely incredible? Did you come to the music or the activism one? Activism. Were you blown away or what? Yeah, it was incredible. We had the music guys first of all, and a wonderful judges, and then we had our activism one, and the roof just lifted. It was absolutely outstanding, the different ways that people are promoting veganism, and I was so inspired. And people have actually come up and said they started to cry afterwards. They were so moved by the ways that people are promoting veganism. And, that's what it's all about. So we're going to talk about the effective ways of promoting veganism. And obviously we're biased because we love the VegFest. I love VeggieVision, which I run as well. So we're team players with the VegFest. And that's all about getting the vegan word into the media and the fact that there's no veggie programs on TV, which is absolutely ridiculous. So that's what I try to do my very best at with VeggieVision. But I think we've only got the one microphone, haven't we? So we're going to pass over. I'm going to pass you over next, I feel, to the most gorgeous, lovely lady who I've got to know well over the couple of years. This is Pola from the Canine Angels. I'm going to let her do the talking, but you wouldn't believe that this wonderful, talented, beautiful singer, musician, passionate vegan, fitness expert is hands-on rescuing animals on pretty much a daily basis through the Canine Angels. So let's have a huge round of applause, and I'll pass the microphone on to my good friend Paula.
Hi and welcome, and thank you so much for having me, Tim. I didn't prepare any speech because I wasn't briefed. But yeah, my name is Pola, and I'm a CEO and founder of a dog rescue charity. We've set up the charity 4.5 years ago, and we started rescuing dogs from pretty much all over the world. Some of these dogs coming from Asia, from a terrible dog meat trade. Some of them have flown to England to their new lovely homes and As we're now talking, they're sleeping soundly on their sofas in front of fireplaces, and they're having the life that every animal deserves. Because of that, I made a massive connection in my head. I mean, these dogs were supposed to be slaughtered, they were supposed to be killed, they were supposed to become someone's food or steak. And I just turned vegan. At that point, when I started rescuing animals, I realized that there is no difference between a dog and a pig. There's no difference between the suffering of a dog or a pig. And so did the adopters, funnily enough. Every person that adopted a dog that came from a horrible, cruel Asian dog meat trade became vegan sooner or later, which is one form of the activism that I do. Yeah, so this is what I do. Another thing is I am a personal trainer and nutritionist. So in an effective way, I don't shove the vegan word down anyone's throat, but if my clients ask me anything, I always smile and suggest plant-based solutions, plant-based food, smoothies, and some of them don't even notice that I don't bring up meat in the nutrition plans that I offer. So that's another way of doing it from me. I'll pass you over to...
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pola. She spoke from her heart, as always. That was wonderful.
So I'm just interested, just pick up there, Pola, that you found that doing your rescue work, actually a lot of people went vegan just through doing that. Can I just ask you about, you mentioned that you said, you don't actually tell people when you're doing your nutrition, that you let them find out. Do you think that's more effective than saying to them, well, actually, this is all vegan and kind of working in the vegan thing? Or do you think it's better to let people just find out?
It depends on a person. You sometimes you have a big macho coming into the gym and he's obviously, you have to feel the person. You can't have the same approach with absolutely everyone. Some people are more open-minded. Some people, I train people in the city, Just imagine the crowd full of macho guys just walking through the door of the gym and with their whey protein powder shakes. So you need to know what sort of approach you take with different people. So the word vegan has some negative connotations, and I think we are changing it as we are. We are the happy vegans, When I first went vegan, I had quite a big following, a platform that I've gained when I released my first album back home. And then I went vegan and I started sharing horrible posts online, on my Facebook. I was one of these angry people that were just cursing everyone who would still eat meat. As a result, I didn't convert many people vegan. As a result, I've actually started losing my following because we're just people and we hate being told that we're wrong. If someone comes to you all guns blazing and says, you're doing this, you should get up from the bed this leg, and, you're like, whoa, hold on, I've been doing something my whole life, and suddenly someone's judging me for this, telling me I'm wrong, and expecting me to change straight away. That's just not going to happen. So you have to know, you have to kind of, hello, hi. So yeah, I feel that there's definitely a different approach to be taken with different people. But if you are vegan, right? We became vegan because of love, not because of hate, right? So how can we convert anyone coming from a place of hate? That's not going to happen either. So everything we do, we have to remember why we became vegan in the first place, right? Okay.
Thank you, Pola. That was wonderful. We haven't got much time because we had to shut at 5, so we will all have to be brief. But I'd be very happy now to talk to, this is Will Tuttle, by the way, has just joined us, which is fortunate. I'm going to ask, first of all, Christopher-Sebastian McJetters to talk about your vegan activism and why you think it's effective. And Christopher.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Sebastian, and I actually just recently relocated to Prague from New York, where most of my activism had been based. I do a lot of lectures there, and this is my first time actually doing any kind of activism work in the UK or even internationally altogether, so I want to thank you guys for inviting me out today and this weekend. But yeah, I work with vegan publishers, and I don't know if Casey Taft is still in the room, but I actually had published a piece in Circles of Compassion, which Will has here, And it was a book that he had edited, and just talking about the connections between animal exploitation and human slavery, and that it just kind of like opened the door for a lot more activism after that. A lot of activity online, talking to people, communicating with people through social media, and in the classroom as well, because I started teaching speciesism at Columbia University through another professor there, and I made a lot of really great connections with students through that work, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of different ways that oppressions intersect and how they connect with one another, and how oppression really kind of reciprocates upon other different types of oppressions, and just kind of undoing the whole thing because it's a really intricate ball of yarn when you start looking at it, and sometimes it feels very overwhelming. And so a lot of my activism is focused on helping people navigate that world, navigate their veganism in like a very unfriendly, extremely speciesist world. So that's it. I do want to keep it brief so I can pass the microphone back to Tim.
Okay, anybody want to ask a question of our panel? Did you want to perhaps ask Sebastian anything? Anybody in the audience want a quick question? Okay, yes, Ian.
Okay, we're going to jump right into that one, aren't we? I'm like that was a lot that you just said, and like and it's something that I actually spend a lot of time talking about lately. To the point that some people get really angry with me about it, because actually talking about the connection between racism and speciesism is a really sensitive topic for people, because a lot of us feel like, like speciesism is so vastly overlooked in social justice circles that it deserves more attention, and it absolutely does. But a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about speciesism in connection with racism because we really don't understand racism. And we think that we do. We think that like racism is like, some people say really nasty things and some people do some overtly discriminatory things, and those things are bad. And so as long as I'm not doing those things, I'm a good person and I can go on about my life. But what we don't realize is that racism, along with all systemic oppression, is actually really insidious, and it's kind of low-key. It's not something that we really understand as a function of our everyday lives, because in our everyday lives, in the society that we live in, whiteness is something that's kind of normalized, and everything that it falls outside of whiteness is kind of either exotified or fetishized or it's criminalized. And we don't recognize the way that we all, black or white, actually contribute to that system and how deeply connected it is to speciesism. And a lot of like work by AFCO, she's someone that that I collaborate with on the blog Striving with Systems. A lot of her work has been so revolutionary in helping me to make these connections, and how understanding that like there's been this kind of unconscious humanization of whiteness in our culture and an animalization of blackness. And I really encourage everyone to read her work and find out more about that, because the more that we unpack about our racism, the more we can unpack about our speciesism, and vice versa is also true. So, and it's a really uncomfortable discussion to have, because when you talk to people about like their privilege, when you talk to people about the impact that it has on people of color, like when they make these comparisons, then like, it really, there's a lot of pushback, because we're really attached to understanding speciesism and helping people to make their connection because of their connection with racism, because they feel like, this is one thing that like, that is in historically like relevant, that is no longer historically relevant, and like it's something that happened in the past, and this is something that's currently happening to animals right now. But what we're not paying attention to is that what did happen in the past, what did happen with particularly slavery, in like the transatlantic slave trade, of course, is what I'm talking about, because I am American, but like, what happened then actually is very present for people of color in the United States right now, and as is the case for people of color across the world. And there are like current ramifications of that system that really distort representations of Black people today and really has a strong impact on us. So the language that we use, the kind of things that we talk about, the kind of connections that we make are all really relevant at the same time. So like it's a really difficult discussion to try to unpack in a really short amount of time. So I hope that like kind of helps out a little bit. Yeah, if we get a smile, then that's good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sebastian. That's very. I can't wait to hear more of you. Actually, wish we had more time. Karin, who's next?
I think let's hand over to Peter Smith, who's come here today representing the Vegan Society. So it'd be fantastic to hear what Peter's got to say with his blatant advert Vegan Society T-shirt on. There you go. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit cold actually today, and I thought I'm going to stick a jumper on, but I had to promote the Vegan Society and wear the shirt, do the branding. I'm head of comms for the Vegan Society. I've been there nearly 2 years now, 2 busy years, and doesn't seem anything more than a few months. At the Vegan Society, work we do means that we support our campaigners out in the field, our local contacts and others. We support local groups by providing them with information, with leaflets, and asking them to support our campaigns and promote them locally. Because for me, as an animal rights campaigner for 35 years nearly now, in the old days, we relied on the support of organisations like Animal Aid, BUAV, and others who would provide us with things that we could use and take out into the streets and promote. So it's really important at the Vegan Society that we do that. But on the main work that we're doing is trying to build campaigns that we can take out into Parliament, take into Europe, and we can encourage change that actually impacts across the whole field of veganism. The one we're working on at the moment is called Grow Green. We're looking at getting the government to provide subsidies to farmers who want to move out of livestock farming, so that they can instead move into ways of producing animal-based, so plant-based protein. So we've done some research work with Aberdeen University, Edinburgh University, and Bangor University to look at what kind of protein can be grown in the UK. It doesn't depend on it being grown in hot climates and so on. And so the work we've been doing is pointing towards hemp seeds and towards fava beans as being very, very high in protein, and it easily replaces dairy in people's diets. That will mean that if we can encourage the government to do this, the result will be that the UK will reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, which of course is why the government, you won't be surprised to know the government will not want to do this because it's better for the animals. But if it reduces our greenhouse gas emissions, then the government may well provide that subsidy. And it's something that we discussed at the Vegan Society 18 months ago. This is where we know we need to get to. At some point in the future, there will be the move away from livestock farming. And it's all well and good as a group of people discussing this and saying it's going to happen at some point in the future. People like me, who's approaching retirement age, starts worrying that this isn't going to happen in my lifetime. We've got to make a start now. And so this campaign is actually making that move and starting that encouragement to support that. And so we're asking people to go to our website if you would, have a look at our campaigns page. It'll tell you about Grow Green. It'll give you a link to find your local MP, and then from that you can write comment and send that to your MP, asking them to read the Grow Green report and support it. So that's one of the major things that we're doing at the Vegan Society. The rest of it you probably all know. We've got our trademark. We support the provision of food for vegans, which is really important. The trademark is now 26 years old, and it's been there for a long time, getting companies to realize that providing vegan food and labeling it as vegans means that vegans will buy it, it'll be better for them. And of course, we encourage manufacturers to take the vegan trademark and move away from things that perhaps contain some animal products, and they're replaced with things that we recommend instead. So we do a lot at the Vegan Society, and the one thing that is the most important, which I'd like to finish on, is that we don't rule anything out. The one thing we know, most of us who've been doing it for a long time, is that there isn't any one way. There's no magic bullet to fix this problem, and so we don't rule out any form of activism. Well, as long as it's kept legal. So that's the work we do at the Vegan Society. So thanks for that.
Out of interest, who here is a member of the Vegan Society? Mm-hmm.
Still got time.
Who here is a member of any vegan campaigning group? Of anyone, Viva or Animal Aid or I don't know, and what's stopping the rest of you? They need you. Yes. Yeah. So yeah.
Grassroots.
Okay. Yep.
What I'd be interested, actually, Peter, we've just that was almost a question I was going to ask. Do you see the grassroots level as being as important as the campaign that you're doing on a national level? So you've talked about the Growing Green report. It's obviously working on a government level with government agencies. That's a kind of work of a national. How do you see do you see the role of the Vegan Society to help also support the grassroots?
Yeah, I do. I personally think the grassroots side of things is really important. I've seen, because I've been doing it for a long time, I've seen a major change in the way that grassroots works. You know, in the old days, it literally was people setting up a pace table and going into the streets of their town and handing leaflets out and hoping they weren't just chucked into the gutter. The leaflets, as it were, rather than the people. So the grassroots work that we see now is actually a lot of the work that's been inspired by VegFest and by other vegan festivals. Lots of people now want to set up things in their local town, and I think probably if there was a register of vegan events at any point in the United Kingdom, I'd say there's got to be 2, 3 or 4 every single weekend in the UK, there's no doubt. And so that's focusing on the positive side of things. It's on the provision, the fact that vegan food is exciting, that vegan energy is exciting. I don't see on the grassroots side as much of the kind of activity I used to see. Perhaps it's my age, actually, I've got to say. Perhaps the people in their early 20s are doing the kind of things that others were doing when I was at that age. Various activities and so on, which was just groups of people working together and being energetic in their own space, often carrying out illegal activities or organising local demos and things like this. I guess things like fur shops were a focus in the past. You know, if you had a fur shop in your town, you felt you were duty-bound to get rid of that place, and it was a real focus. I know some people do the same when there's a new factory farm being built and so on. In the Midlands, there's been a plan to build the UK's biggest pig farm, and there's been a lot of activity about that, particularly from the Derby group. But a lot of the grassroots groups are working on the positive side of things rather than campaigning against, in a negative way, against some of the activities and so on. So I do see that as a definite change.
Thanks, Peter. I mean, just my own tuppence worth, I think, of a strong nationals with a strong grassroots, with grassroots supporting nationals, nationals supporting grassroots, that's the way forward. A big support of both. Next, as we're moving on, and the building are going to kick us all out in a bit. So, very happy to have Mr. Will Tuttle here. Will has come all the way from America, and Will is a very interesting guy. And Will, please do tell us a little bit about your own effective activism and what you think is effective.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Let's give him a big hand for this great conference and the efforts that are happening here. Thank you so much. It's really very inspiring. I think from my own perspective, I've been focusing on grassroots activism. I became a vegetarian about 40 years ago, and about 36 years ago, I guess, a vegan. And from the very beginning, I was an activist. Starting in 1980, there was a lot of stuff starting to happen in the Bay Area, protests and demos and things like that. And then I also was teaching college, so it was great to go into the classroom I had the power to make my students read the books I told them they had to read if they want to take my class, right? So they were reading, Peter Singer's Animal Liberation and everything else, and because I taught classes in philosophy. So, to me, it's always been a burning passion to educate people about the consequences of violence towards animals, and it's been excruciatingly painful to feel the difficulty of bringing this message to people. So it's been like a burning question of how to be effective in advocacy. And I think the most effective thing, quite honestly, is personal transformation. That we, like Gandhi said it very well, he said there will never be any positive social transformation without positive personal transformation. And we can not change other people. We can't. We can change ourselves to be the message, and that will perhaps change other people. But the whole idea that I'm going to change you sets up a dynamic of violence, essentially. People don't want to have us change them. So what I've been working on is bringing the message in a way where I'm embodying the message as much as possible. And out of that, there's writings and educational programs and lectures and things like that. And that's been, I have to say, the inner work is, I think, the hardest work in some ways to actually do. It's much easier to see those bad people, and if they would change, then we'd have a good movement, or if those people we could just get rid of them, then everything would be okay. And to just really see that it essentially comes back to my own relationships with the people in my life, and how I think of others, and how I'm actually spending my time and living, that it's essential to root out the inner and outer violence in daily life. And so out of that, I think we will build a movement that will be unstoppable. When we have vegans that are living loving kindness and compassion and caring in their everyday relationships with each other and with the general public and with all animals, not only non-human animals, but human animals, and having compassion for human animals and treating them with kindness and respect, then we'll be worthy of creating together a society that reflects that. But if we're not living that, we're not worthy. We're still wounded by the violence that we're forced to participate in and eating animal foods. That's the underlying hidden violence in our society. So I've been working primarily for years through churches, progressive churches. I don't know if you're aware of like Unitarian and Unity and other more progressive churches. I pretty much every Sunday speak at a church somewhere and bring the vegan message as best I can to those people. And then also, I speak probably 200 times a year to other groups, yoga, vegan groups, social justice groups, environmental groups, wherever I can go. We've been living on the road, literally. I've been living on the road for nearly 20 years, traveling full time. And so I just love that traveling aspect and just always coming in to town and being like a stranger comes to town. Carl Jung said that's one of the only ways that cultures transform is when a stranger comes to town. Well, that brings another idea. I'm the stranger that comes into town and introduce this radical idea. And then we leave and we just try to plant seeds, just plant the seeds. And I think the most effective way to plant the seeds is to be living those seeds and let it just spontaneously come out as we're acting and talking and learning and living with each other and create an example that people will yearn to emulate that example and to learn to look with eyes of loving kindness on others and forgiveness and gratitude for this precious opportunity of a human life. It's a short time. We're only here for a few years. It's not very long. We've come into a situation that's critical. There's a lot of violence going on. We're born into it. We've been wounded by it, and the woundedness shows up as competition and shaming and blaming and competing and all these things. To root that out of ourselves so that we create a movement of love that's really rooted in loving kindness. And that movement will just be absolutely unstoppable. And I created a training, and it's kind of both an in-person training and an online training. It's called the World Peace Diet Facilitator Training. It's been really great to see people go through that and then start creating things. Like Kip Anderson created Cowspiracy. Sandra Higgins went out and created the Billboard campaign. And this other woman, Lorena Muck, has just created this huge, it's called the Ethical Choices program, and they're sending people to teach veganism in schools all over the United States, and now it's going worldwide. And so I think the seed has to be pure. The seed in our own consciousness is what we can really work with. And when we purify that, we'll begin to plant seeds, and we don't know, I mean, the sky is the limit. And I think as we concentrate on the individual purity of our expression of loving kindness, then we can't even begin to know how we'll touch people. But we just let go, like the Bhagavad Gita says, plant your seeds and let go, and then the movement will connect with the power and the liberation of the human spirit to liberate all living beings. We'll never be free if we're enslaving animals or each other, and we all know that in our bones. So we're just functioning on that level of liberating ourselves first and then liberating all beings. Thanks.
Just before I speak again, would any of our panel like to ask anything for Will?
Okay, so the question was, are there any suggestions I have to how to make the seed as pure as possible? That's a huge question. I have this whole 18-hour training that we, but anyway, I can, I know we don't have that much time, but I just emphasize the thing, just start your day consciously. Wake up, make sure the first thought in your mind is, wow, another day to awaken to another possibility of sharing and blessing the world, and then take some time to be quiet, just sit quietly, introspect, feel into the fact that what you are is an expression of consciousness, that you're not just a thing. We're raised in a materialist society where we're taught that everything is mechanical and material. We're just chemical, biological machines raised in an absurd universe with no apparent meaning. I mean, we got to get rid of that. That is a carnivorous mentality. That's the mentality of a herding society that's lost touch with reality. We have to connect with what we are is eternal consciousness that is awake and aware, and that we're here to express our lives. And so take time to connect in the silence with the eternal element, however that is for you, and then you'll be going forth. Take time to connect with nature every day. Take time every day to do something creative, whatever it is, music, art, dance, something. Get the energies flowing, and then bring your livelihood into alignment with your values, and you will find your life begins to become more and more an expression. But I think it really comes from taking time to be quiet and connect with your intuition, your inner wisdom. Yeah. Yeah. If you go to worldpeacediet.com, you can find out more there. Yeah.
Just wanted to say that, that's something I think is really fundamental for people in the social justice movement. You must look within. You've got to conquer your own oppression. All of us have oppression within us, and it all comes out. Sebastian touched on that. We don't even realize, we think we're great people. We don't even realize. We haven't spent the time to consider these things. I mean, Will, I'm right to think you're a Zen monk. You've done a Zen monk training. Well, it's all within. It's all within, and it's worth to look within. And I love your words, Will. To all activists, have a look within. See what's lying within.
Well, I just want to say that I think that just the fact that you ask this question shows that you are on the right way. And you have the humility and the willingness to learn. And like Will said, just be grateful for every day. Know you're here for a reason, and that reason is love. You're here because love brought you here. And you're here to change the world, yeah? Yeah, exactly. We're all little screws in a big machine, and every screw is important. Just don't forget that you're here for a reason.
Right, okay. And our final panellist is an esteemed, a very interesting gentleman who was originally one of the founders, originators of the ALF, spent, I think, 40 years now as vegan, and has been recently described as many things, but for me, Roger Yates is nothing short of a legend. Roger.
With a surname like mine, I'm used to being last. Go on, you can do better than that. With a surname like mine, you're used to being last. Yeah. Yeah, I'm working as a volunteer with the Vegan Information Project in Dublin. We've got a unique style of street education based on a gazebo stall. We try to bring a lot of elements together that people would normally do, you know, leafleting and everything else, but we also use videos, sampling, and, you know, lots of other things. I'm going to try and keep this short because I'd like to see a lot more coming from the audience rather than just from the panel. And I don't want to be the dissenting voice, but I think I will be, in the sense that I disagree with Karin and Tim on the national groups. I think the Vegan Society aside, because I think they've got a unique role, I think we could live quite well without Animal Aid and Viva and the vivisection groups. We should live, as of tomorrow, without PETA. They should be closed down immediately. They're a disgrace. I don't see why any vegan would ever support such a terrible, horrible organization. I'm into intersectionality, and I think the main thing for me from intersectionality, which is really important, is the fact that it says to white, middle-class academics, like kind of myself, it says, be quiet, listen, and then, if you must, then talk. So I think that's one of the strengths of intersectionality.
Okay, guys, this is a two-way thing. We're not just going to sit up here and chat. So I want to throw it open to you guys. These incredible people, some of them have come a very long way to be here. So I don't know how we're doing for time. Time for one. Oh, not two. I would be here all night. But have we got one really fabulous question? Oh, there, look, there you go, there you go. Yeah, what do you want to do about that? Yeah. Right, so we're saying, who do we need to support? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, okay. Pola wants to answer, first of all, then. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, guys, seriously, we are at the brink of an extinction. Do we have time to argue vegans with vegans? We don't have time for that. You know, we have whole world against us. We are a minority. One organization fighting another when everyone's making change, for me, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, can I? Yeah. Yeah, and I just wanted to add that I feel each as individuals, and one of the things I said earlier was how important it is for every form of campaigning to work. And I think you need to find people doing things that you believe in, and follow them, and follow your heart. And you need to campaign in a way that really suits you. Exactly. And if that is making a benefit for the animals and also for the environment, then you're doing the right thing, and you've got to stick with that. So go with your heart, I would say.
My focus is on the grassroots, and they're the ones that need the support. And more than that, I tend to think of the money in the movement as the animals' money. The animals' money, it's not ours. We don't have the right to spend it badly, and we certainly don't have the right to waste it. There are millions of pounds being wasted on duplication right now. We're duplicating jobs, we're duplicating literature, we're duplicating sales goods, we're duplicating physical buildings, we are wasting millions of pounds. If all the national group people would agree to stand up in front of us, and I'm excluding the vegan side because I think but I do think you've got a unique role. If they were stood there in front of us with a piece of paper telling us who they are, what they do, and how much they cost, we would be really shocked. The people who need funding are the grassroots, the business end, the backbone of every social movement, radical movement, and veganism is a radical movement. It's a very radical movement about the moral evolution of humanity, no less. The backbone of every radical social movement has been the grassroots, and yet the grassroots are starved of resources because all the money gets sucked into London and Kent and everywhere else. We need to look at the structure of the funding structure of the movement and look at it critically. And we need to eliminate the waste because we don't have the right to waste the animals' money.
All right. Yeah, I think I tend to agree actually with Roger on that one. The grassroots is where it's at from my point of view in terms of most of what's really happening to deepen the connection. I think there are some movements that do, larger groups that do have a grassroots aspect where they're working locally, and I like supporting them. But I also don't want to make any particular recommendations. I think we have to do our own research and follow our intuition, what we feel, and also our critical thinking. You know, where we feel that if we have money, we're going to give, or time, or resources, to try to put it into something that we feel is going to maximizing vegan education. I'm really excited about this new ethical choices program. It's great to see the grassroots funding going into that. Vegans going into schools and bringing the messages. It was great to see Cowspiracy, how it was funded as a grassroots movement, and now they have a new film coming out, What the Health, and they were hoping to get, I think it was $40,000. Already they're over $150,000. It's totally grassroots kind of campaign, education campaign. So it does work. If any movement, all of us, each one of us. I mean, there's another guy who went through my training. Actually created. He's giving away $1,000 every single day. And it's mainly to vegan movement, vegan micro loans to help bring vegan change. And so anyone can apply for one. Anyone can apply for a loan in that program. And so I think, if anyone has a dream, instead of thinking of giving money to other groups, create something and have people give to you and bring something. We can all. It's great now with Indiegogo. We can fund each other, and it's really starting to happen. It's amazing. Yeah.
Christopher-Sebastian.
All right. My turn to go last, right, Roger? That's a really good question that you asked, and I think that it's a really important question that you asked. And if anybody wants like a pragmatic, concrete answer, I want you to get your pen and paper, and I want you to pay attention to this because these are the people that I support. I talked yesterday in my lecture specifically about a few organizations because they focus their grassroots efforts specifically, on intersectional activism that is rooted in veganism. And the first organization that I talked about was A Well-Fed World. A Well-Fed World was started by Don Moncrief. It's a great organization. They focus on feeding people. They focus on food activism, food insecurity. They focus on the animals and exploited animals that are in the system. Another organization that I talked about was Food Empowerment Project that was started by Lauren Ornelas. Food Empowerment Project is something that I really, really fully support and that I harp on every opportunity that I get. I completely co-sign on the work that they do because they focus on, the animals. They have a strictly vegan organization and they're extremely uncompromising in that message. And they also focus their food insecurity and food activism efforts on the people who need it the most, which are the underprivileged people of low-income families, and people who really need things like grocery lists. How do you do vegan shopping? People who are in the food system that are part of the chain of exploitation. People that are, the people that pick our produce, we need them to be vegan as well. And Lauren Ornelas has said before, we tell people that veganism is easy, but who is it easy for? Is it easy for the people in this room, all of us that were able to buy a ticket and come to this event today? But is it also easy for the people who are being paid 7 cents a day in South America to pick our organic tomatoes? Veganism is not going to be easy for everybody, and we need to face that reality, and we need to include those people in our discussions. So A Well-Fed World definitely Food Empowerment Project. Chili on Wheels is an organization in New York that I am very intimately familiar with, started by Michelle Carrera. There's also the Sister Vegan Project, started by Dr. Amy Breeze Harper. She's phenomenal. She does so much work tirelessly, and most of her work is done online for free. All of these resources are online. You can go to their websites. I personally actually work with PAN, Peace Advocacy Network. Layla Vaughn is the contact that had drawn me in. I started working with their social media just a couple of months ago, and that hasn't been formally announced, so now I guess it's out there. But yeah, Peace Advocacy Network focuses their veganism efforts on like making people vegan in their communities, like going to church communities. That's so important. Talking to like people at the local level, getting people involved that are in your community, talking to them about veganism, why it's important to them. And the reason why it's important to focus on poor people, on people of color, on women, is that number one, these are communities that have firsthand experience with oppression, and they understand what it's like. And people that deal with oppression every day and who live under oppression every day, they have an intimate relationship with others who live under oppression. And people, especially poor people, this is something that I excluded from my presentation yesterday, the one that was in the afternoon. Poor people in particular, they actually have, this has been like studied by social scientists, poor people actually have more empathy. The more money you have, it's been proven, like the lower your empathy levels go. And, you know, and so we're talking about the people who really, really need veganism the most, the people who are going to be able to make these ethical associations with the animals. And, you know, and these are the people that we need to include in the conversation. These are the people that deserve to be here as well. And, you know, and I look around this room and I look at all of your faces, and all of you have so much heart, and all of you like really want to know how to focus your efforts. But what I don't see is a lot of diversity around here. And we need more of that. And we need these organizations. And again, like these are all grassroots organizations. They're all started by women, and particularly women of color. So like, you know, if you want to know who to support, those are the names that I'm going to give you. So that's what I've got to say.
That's a hard act to follow. That was incredible. Really moving. I know Caroline Bailey on ARZ would be particularly delighted to hear that last 5 minutes of speech. It's one of the most important subjects consistently ignored by nearly all of us. So thank you, Sebastian, for speaking up there. Appreciate that. Just before we finish, I'm going to hand over to Karin. I'm just going to say something about Animal Aid, actually. They do so much work for grassroots, and it is an indication of why some nationals can really be effective on a grassroots. There's a lot of grassroots in England who work with Animal Aid, and Animal Aid work with grassroots. As for me, it's the one standout organisation for the grassroots national engagement, and it's the one that slightly gives me hope that, you know, Roger, we might, you know, there is room. But essentially, I agree with you, Roger, it's grassroots. Do it yourself. You know, start a vegan event. Yeah, do a veg fest. You know, get one going. Okay.
Okay, guys, boys and girls, when I said, can I have a fabulous question? Thank you. Round of applause for a really fabulous question. Thank you. Thank you. It couldn't have got better, and I think we've all learnt a lot, and brilliant responses. And maybe just a bit of a summary is really own it. It's you, it's your life, it's your message. You own it. Research, have a look into different projects, different organisations, some of which I don't know about. And take bits from all of them that resonate with you, that you feel, actually, I could make use of this. You know, as Roger just said, a lot of these places, you know, they have already done some work for us, a lot of work. Take bits from what resonate with you, from what you feel that you can run with, whether it's giving a talk, making a video, doing a veg fest, standing up, giving a school talk, giving a talk in your church. I'd never even thought of that before. It's outstanding. And you own it. You know, there are no vegan programs on TV. And I've worked my little socks off tirelessly with no funding through pure love running VeggieVision. If I can step up and do something, because I don't want someone telling me what to do. I was a trustee of the Vegan Society and, you know, love them to pieces, and I was thrilled to have been a trustee. But I just like to own it myself. I don't want someone telling me what to do. So I'll do the research and I'll find out what works for me. And, you know, I've set up VeggieVision. And you can do that too. You can run festivals, give talks. There's so many things. I'm so inspired by these guys. How lucky are we to have heard these wonderful people? Thank you so much for talking and sharing and talking with your heart. Shall we show them some VegFest love? I've gone. It's the end of the day. They're amazing, aren't they? And thank you to you as well. We've got a lovely audience. Thank you for being so supportive. I hope you've got something good out of this. Thank you. Thank you.